Hello and welcome to Leading Through Uncertainty. I'm Rachael Lewis
Hello, I'm Gareth English.
and we're business psychologists and experts in leadership. And we thought we would put together this brief webcast, just to help people who are leading NHS staff, key workers, care workers through these very difficult and uncertain times. The tips we've got in here would apply to anybody in any sector though, so they're very useful.
Thanks, Rachel. I know you've pulled together some really good stuff here. For you, what's the most important thing? Where should we start?
I think, Gareth, we should always start with ourselves, that it's really important to look after yourself first and make sure you're in the right place then to lead and look after other people. And it's really simple. This is a very difficult time, unprecedented pressures on people, and we're going to have negative emotions. So just expect and accept that that is going to happen. We can't choose the emotions we have, but what we can do is we can choose how we're going to deal with them.
That sounds a little bit easy. What can people actually do?
Yeah, so when we're thinking about these emotions, well, they're just happening to us often. What we need to do is give them a name, label them, and then that really helps to free the brain up. It moves it away from the emotional state more into a positive problem-solving, creative state. That's the first top tip. The second thing is to really just refocus. There's loads of great websites with breathing exercises out there, mindfulness. Make sure you're just doing a little bit each day. And when you are feeling overwhelmed, distract yourself away from it. Focus on what you can do.
So I love that notion of what we can do and what is possible. How can people make that super practical?
Yeah, two things. The first is, if you can, make a list of all the things that you do know. If there's lots of uncertainty, make that list and just start off with what you can do on that list. It might only be tiny things, but focus on that. The second thing is not to focus too much on the goal or the outcome, but to refocus yourself on how we're going to get there. So we often have more choice about that than we do about what we actually have to do.
No,
So
brilliant. I love that notion of choicefulness.
Yeah. So, having got in the right space, Gareth, I'm just thinking now, how might that apply to what we're going to do as leaders leading others?
Yeah, I love that. I love that notion of taking care of yourself first, and then you can attend to what's going on for other people. For me, one of the key things in times like this, I'd encourage leaders to consider is what's the pressure and the stress impact upon the people that they're leading and managing. And one of the ways I like to think about that is what I call the stress equation. So essentially what this says is that the amount of stress we experience is a factor of the pressure we're under, take away the support that we have. So we can deal with an enormous amount of pressure so long as we also have an enormous amount of support.
Ah, that's fantastic. And of course, support is difficult because a lot of our old support mechanisms have gone now, surely.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so a situation, a crisis like this works in two ways on us because it increases the level of pressure. We're having to do new things in new ways, and it decreases sources of support. Just simple things like being able to go and see family and friends is the source of support that's way more difficult for us now.
Yeah. And is what I would find supporting me the same that you would find supporting you?
No, absolutely not. So some people really like an exciting new situation and find that is a real source of support for them. Other people like to work in tried and tested ways and they know what they're doing. So for me, a couple of tips are to find for you some ways of reducing the pressure. Now, for me, one of the key things here is accepting in a situation like this, there's some stuff that simply won't get done. Normal things that you considered were important and necessary are no longer as important and necessary. So we just have to accept that won't happen. And even if we can't change the levels of pressure, and sometimes those are outside of our control, which you talked about earlier, we can often increase sources of support. Now, for me, there's a key bit here, which is about investing time in supporting ourselves and investing time for your team in allowing them to find activities that support them, whatever those might be. Spending time with friends and family, or looking for an enjoyable activity, one that you can get better at over time.
Yeah. Okay. That's really helpful, Gareth. One of
And
the
I
things
know, sorry, go on.
No, that's it. Go on.
I was just going to say, for me, I know this ties in a lot to how you talk about in terms of what else is necessary for leaders to do.
Yeah. I think one of the key things in there is about really communicating with each other about what we're each going to find helpful. And communication is going to be absolutely critical as we go through these uncertain times. One of the things that happens under stress is that people find it harder to take new information on board. And so we could almost think of needing to over communicate at this time. I'm cautious.
I can't imagine you doing such a thing, Rachel.
I know. It's impossible to think, isn't it? I'm cautious about saying over communicate, because of course it really has to be the right stuff that we're communicating. It's no
Right.
good
Well, that's again is neat to say. What's the right stuff?
Yeah, so the right stuff is going to be, first of all, really acknowledging and allowing a space for emotions and feelings at this point in time. We're all human beings. We're going to go through a wide range of different emotions. Actually telling people that you are finding something difficult lets them in to talk about how they're feeling. So as a leader, we tend to feel we need to keep a professional front at all times, but actually sharing some constructive thoughts about how you're feeling can be helpful. The other thing that's really important is recognizing that there are a lot of people who don't have access to lots of information at this point in time, and who are maybe at home waiting for further instruction, wondering how they can help. And if all they get from you is a 3-word email every now and again, they're going to get really anxious. So I think it's really important that you signpost what's going on, and if you are too busy to write a full answer, just let them know that at the beginning of your email, and tell them how and when you'll hope to get back to them. The next thing I think is really important is repetition.
I can see that, Rachel, but what about the importance of repeating stuff?
Yeah, repetition is really important, Gareth, I think you'll find. And I think particularly where information is really scarce, just repeating what we do know and keeping people focused on that is really important. Again, going back to the idea of focus, you've spent a bit of time thinking about yourself, what is possible, what you can do, and really just engaging people around what they can do, what is possible, and that you'll get through it together is also going to be absolutely critical in this time.
I love that. So yeah, that's still tying all that back together to what you're talking about what is possible and what is possible therefore for a group of people, a team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you do quite a lot of work on helping people understand what is possible too, Gareth. So do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, that's one of the next thing I wanted to talk about is an idea called the growth mindset, which will be familiar to a lot of people. And it's really about the notion that everything we do, we can be better at it, no matter how good or bad we are right now. And in a crisis like this, we often come across a lot of things where we're nowhere near as good as we'd like to be at them, often because we're coming across new situations or required to use new skills. And wouldn't it be weird if we happened to be fantastic at it the first time we tried it? So for me, a key thing to remember is yet. There are many things in this crisis we're not good enough at yet. And we will be. We will be better the more we work at things, the more we try things. And that where we're facing unknowns, where we're facing ambiguity, we will know more in the future.
So you're saying that there is hope for me yet, being a presenter on a webcast.
We will get better, Rachel, as time goes on.
Better. Absolutely. Yeah, I was just going to ask you for some tips.
Yeah, that's good. I was going to say exactly that. So for me, the number one tip is about experimenting. So it's about trying things out. The principle of experimenting is we're not expecting something to be perfect when we experiment. We are expecting to learn things. Now, the other thing about experiments is whether they go well or they don't go so well, we've learned something either way. So try things out. Remember the power of yet. I'm not as good as I want to be yet. I'm not as good at doing these webcasts as I want to be yet. I'm not as good at handling pressure and crisis as I want to be yet. So seek out feedback and adjust what you're doing.
Yeah, lovely. Tell me more about this idea of experimenting, because I've got pictures of people going around with lots of test tubes and, clipboards.
Yeah, look, a lab coat and a clipboard is a lovely, and it's a fantastic fashion device in the spring. That white is really going to show off the sunshine. But look, some people like the idea of experimenting, trying things out. Other people say that sounds a bit scary, particularly if you're working in an environment where the cost of mistakes is really high. So the simplest way to experiment is just to rehearse something, to try it out. Now, that could be trying something out in practice. I could be thinking it through in my head. I could be saying the words out loud. Whenever you see a brilliant sports person like a skier about to go down a slope, they'll rehearse in their head the perfect run. When you see someone taking a kick at goal, they'll be rehearsing inside their mind just how they want it to go perfectly.
Brilliant. Okay, so that's really helpful. What have we learned so far?
Well, 4 things we really want you guys to take away from this. Do look after yourself. Manage the pressure, manage the support that you and your team are under. Communicate, keep communicating, even when all you have to say is, I don't know everything yet. And we're not there yet, but we will be.
Great advice, Gareth. Thank you very much to you. And also, just from both of us, we want to say a huge thank you to everybody who's out there, whether you're shielding someone or waiting to get back into work or being a key worker and leading people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.